eventually people are going to say, what the hell is going on?
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light. In our galaxy, everything. Because everything is in balance. Everything is a polarity.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder, and finally it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is.
I'm sorry, but we made it. We actually made it. Okay, it's going to be worth it. I know I added another 10 minutes onto the show today, but it's going to be worth it. I promise. Now, just bear with me for one moment because my headphones are on a weird setting that's going to mess with the show. But how are we all, guys? It's nice to see you. Again, I am sorry I'm a little bit late, but basically, we had the show organized, and then I just had like this little last minute addition that I really wanted to include because I think it's going to add a lot to the show today because we got a lot to go through. We got a lot of good stuff to get through, but I just wanted to make sure it was that little bit sweeter. So bear with me here. I'm just going to turn this off my headphones, and we're going to be good to go after that, I promise. Basically what it is every time I talk, my headphones turn off, and it's just impossible to deal with. Impossible for me to deal with anyway. All right. Okay. I think we're good now. How are we all? Nice to see you. Nice to see you. Got people coming in from all over the place. A lot of weirdos in the chat. Tamara, Bleak, Heather, Guy on a Donkey, Tommy B, Poland Power, Cat Simpson, Paris Diamonds, Thomas, True 79, Rob Stewart. We love to see it. Sean, man, some of you guys have been in here for a long, long time. I appreciate you all. Thank you for coming to hang out today. We are going to have a lot of fun. So, we're obviously going to be talking about the tall whites, the Nordics. Do they pull the strings? Is that who is the shadow government? Is that something around that has to do with what's going on here? But before we get into that, we've got two things we're going to be looking at today. First of all, we've got a little follow-up from Matthew Brown. So this is kind of like just breaking. This just came out on Jeremy Corbell's Weaponized podcast this morning. Shout out Poland Power who hooked me up with this clip. So this is basically a little follow-up because in the last live stream that we did, we went through Matthew Brown's tweet, and obviously it was super cryptic. There's a lot there to get through, and ultimately a lot of people are kind of wondering, like, is it even him? Is he okay? Like, what the hell is actually going on? Well, we actually have some confirmation from Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp as to if he's okay, is it actually him, and just kind of a little bit of a follow-up on that. So we're going to look at that clip today. We're also going to be looking at a video that from Vetted. Okay, so I don't know if you guys follow Vetted. He's been on this channel before too. Basically does like daily, just sort of like UFO news and updates. And basically Vetted went to Contact in the Desert, and Chris Bledsoe was there. And Chris Bledsoe did like an open sky watch where, you know, he did his thing where he summons an orb. And I don't know if you guys saw the tweet, but about a week ago, if that, Vetted said, you know, he shared the post of Chris Bledsoe and said, yeah, I was there for this. It was a plane. Like, you know, Chris was there saying he's summoning an orb and it's an orb, but Vetted was just like, it's a plane, and everyone here thinks it's a plane. Like, it's not just me. Everyone is saying it's a plane. So that's kind of interesting, right? But he's just actually done a video on it today. So it's not a long video. We're going to look at that. And then we're going to get into the meat and bones of today's show, which is all about the tall whites, the Nordics. We've got plenty of clips to go through today, guys. I feel like today is going to be a really fun show. Let me just put this in here so I don't forget to look at it. But let's just get straight into it, guys. I feel like we don't need to mess around today because this could be a long show, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's start off with the Matthew Brown follow-up clip. Let me just jump over here. Oh, Where is my... Why isn't that showing? There we go. All right, let's check out this clip. Make sure we've got a little bit of volume. All right, team, let's get into it.
We shift gears now a little bit. Our friend Matt Brown, whistleblower, Immaculate Constellation, the guy who was on 3 episodes and just blew the world's mind with talking about what he had seen on the inside, decided to get an account on X. And we both thinking, is this a good idea? And, we trust him. He's a really interesting guy, has a really solid mind, is a deep thinker. But he came out with some stuff, some posts that have people in the UFO world scratching their heads. What the hell is he talking about? What does this mean? And wondering if he went off the deep end. You are the Matt Brown whisperer. So tell us what your take is on the things that he posted.
Yeah, so he created, an X account that is like public under his name. And, it's a really treacherous thing because he's dealing with like real world implications. He's just out of government. He has to, figure out how he's going to, live his life and, pay his rent and do all the kind of very terrestrial things. But as we know, he's been really affected by his experiences being accidentally exposed to UAP information, so much so that he did his own multi-year internal investigation, like an all-source analysis. And he was, uncovered or was able to see and be exposed to information that, man, it's given me ontological shock from time to time, right? So you've got somebody who's put it all on the line for the American public, is thrust into the light, publicly, when it's somebody who's always been behind the scenes, so it is natural. People are like, he's on X and he just did this kind of cryptic post. Is he okay? Is he under threat? Matt is fine. Matt is completely okay. He's got a dramatic, writing style on.
So, first of all, I mean, there's not a whole heap to this clip, but I think what a lot of us were looking for is just some actual confirmation, because the stuff in that tweet, I mean, if you guys haven't seen the last live stream we did, he's talking about Enochian magic ciphers, summoning the Archangel Aborimon, like wild shit, okay? Completely wild shit. Stuff that doesn't really necessarily seem like the same guy who did the interviews with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. So I think it's like understandable to question like the authenticity of those tweets and where they came from. But this is Jeremy Corbell sitting here, the guy who interviewed him, saying it's him, he's okay. And I mean, he's saying he's just got a bit of a weird writing style. We'll listen to a little bit more of it just to see if we can get anything more from this. But we'll move on to the vetted clip quickly because I want to get into the main story today about the tall whites. Just quickly, though, we had a $10 super chat come in from French Dad. The truth is Josh. Thank you, man. I appreciate the support.
On X, but he's talking about things that are extremely dramatic and things that he feels are important. So, separate from the personality style of what he wrote, there's very specific sections that I think people are not understanding, missing, or I want to help clarify to the best of my ability. There's AI assertions, and then there's UAP assertions. But if you just kind of read through it, it's very specific. So I'll try to break a few of them down. Just like, what did Matt say? Look, I don't speak for Matt. Matt speaks for himself. And I happen to know you're going to hear more from Matt. I think that George, I think that, there's a lot to do on that. But for now,
there we go. He's just saying we're going to hear more from Matt. And I think we need to. But guys, doesn't it just seem like all of this shit just seems to pop off at the same time? Like, I mean, we're getting a pretty consistent update of like UAP news regularly, at least, compared to how we were, let's say 10 years ago, a lot more of it. But I feel like when big things happen everywhere. Like, obviously we've got these like, all this shit's going on in LA at the moment, like riots. Trump and Elon are having a public fight, whether it's People are saying it's staged. People are saying it isn't. I don't know. The point is it's happening, right? The point is it's out there and seems like either intentionally or not, it's out there and it's occupying our minds or your minds or people's minds. So you've got the raids, you've got Trump and Elon, you've got Matthew Brown dropping tweets saying, reality is a lie and God is real and here is an Enochian magic cipher. There's just so much. It all just seems to go boom at the same time. And then the Wall Street Journal come out with their absolute embarrassment of an article, which, by the way, I think I might just clarify this quickly while we're here and touching on it. I had a lot of people because I did the video reading through the Wall Street Journal and talking about it. And obviously, guys, like when I do those videos, they are like genuine reaction videos. Like I don't read that stuff before I do it because I like to get my genuine reaction. But a lot of the time, my genuine reaction is like there's emotion involved, there's emotion attached, and I don't always have time to like fully think about it or think about what my response is, right? And in that video, I was highlighting a lot of how just sort of bullshit it is, right? Which it is, but at the same time, there's a truth to it. Like it is a half truth. Like the government has been running like psychological operations on the public and gaslighting members of the public and maybe even the military as well. People who don't have a need to know, perhaps seeing or finding things, they are then doing these psychological operations on them. Like that is true. Like I think we all know that part is true. So I wasn't like when I was saying this whole thing is a joke, I'm not denying that. I agree. But it's like they're trying to like admit to 10% to explain 100%, right? This article does not explain, like there are just so many cases out there from pilots, from abductees, from witnesses. Like there's just so much to the phenomenon that it feels like this Wall Street Journal article is just trying to, give an inch, put their hand up and be like, oh, okay, this little part was us. But now they're trying to use that to just wash away the whole thing, which is obviously, that's the joke. Okay, the thumbnail said, what a joke. That's the joke. But the rest of it, it's true. But there's just so much more to the story than that, I think. So I'm glad that came up because I did just kind of want to clarify that because, yeah, I do react in the moment. And sometimes you don't have the time to like fully compile your thoughts. But I like that because I like to give you just kind of like a raw and real feel on how I feel about it in the moment. But I think that's probably all we need to hear from Corbell, because just to kind of get that little follow-up on Matthew Brown is nice. But the next thing we want to look at here is this video from Vetted. So again, if anyone is tuning in a little bit late, basically Vetted put out a tweet about a week ago saying that he was at Contact in the Desert. He went to Chris Bledsoe's Skywatching event, which is where Chris summons these orbs like he says that he does. And that, Chris was doing it. The light in the sky arrived. Chris was saying, here it is. Here's the orb. But according to Patrick himself and everyone else around him was kind of like, side-eyeing each other like that's a plane. That's a plane. Which is, kind of crazy. I've always felt like Chris came across as honest. A lot of people say he's like a modern Benowitz. I mean, the involvement with Tim Taylor is definitely weird. Who knows? But let's take a look at this video. I might put the speed up a little bit because it's almost 15 minutes of video, but we'll skip through it a little bit if we need to.
Into the details here. All right, so let me sort of set the scene here, right? So I'm at this conference. This event is planned. There's going to be people out there. It's on this lawn, right? I want to see Chris Bledsoe do this. I've never been to anything like this, a sort of skywatching event where people claim they can basically procure, right, these orbs to come out of the sky, summon them, conjure them to come out, by using the power of our mind. Okay, I'm in. Let's go. Let's see this happen. I go out there. It's a little hard to see, I have to admit, because we're right next to a building that's glass windows and just the lights are still on, and that's just coming through on the lawn area where we're all sitting. I took video footage and you just can't see anything really. And, it's dark out there and you just hear Chris's voice over a microphone. I'm not sure exactly where he was. And, waiting for these, orbs to fly by, right? And look, I will admit, at the beginning of this event, within the first minutes of being there, I was there with Gino from the Y-Files, and Gino and I are sitting there. He's eating this like bacon burger or something. We're talking about the bacon, and I'm like, that smells good. And the next thing, oh shit, what's that in the sky? I didn't really hear anything, but all of a sudden there's something in the sky, and I do see this light sort of flash, and move. It was at least a couple seconds, and it just, appeared, moved, and it was weird, right? There was cloud cover because it had kind of been, rainy that day. So there was clouds. So you kind of had like, in front, the area in front of the clouds themselves, and then the area behind the clouds. That's what you were trying to differentiate when you were looking up. And this thing came in front of the clouds, and it was bright, and it did move fast, and it was gone. When I reached for my phone, Gino too, like when I looked up, it was gone. So I didn't see what happened to it exactly. But that was weird. I admit that was weird, and I can't explain it. I don't know what it was. Here's a short video I took right after it happened.
All of you leave here now seeing this present. This is what we're asking for.
You gotta be kidding me. I didn't get it. I didn't get it either. I did see it.
But that's not the sighting that went viral during this, because while we're there at this event, Chris does get on the microphone and say specifically at 9:45. Okay, this thing started at 9 o'clock. I got there like 9:15-ish. He says at 9:45, we're going to see something. We're going to see a triangular craft. That's exactly what he said. A triangular craft come. Okay.
That's pretty wild. What kind of confidence must you have to say to a group of people that you are going to see specifically a triangular craft at this specific time? Like, that is, you're hedging your bets there. Like, you have, I don't know, hundreds of people watching you. Not only are you not only are you saying you're going to see something, which is already like, okay, how do you know? Two, then you're saying it's the shape of it and the time. Like, they're three different parameters that you are risking your credibility on. Like, you could have just said, I think we're going to see something soon. And if they did, people still would have been like, wow, he did it. But he's saying the time, the shape, like, I don't know. That's like, the confidence is wild. The confidence in it is wild.
Okay. Well, 9:45 hits, nothing, right?
Kat says the kind of confidence you get after you check the plane schedule.
In fact, the people I'm with were kind of commenting about it. But then at 9:47, okay, something does come by. But to be fair, things were coming by every few minutes. You know what I mean? Like, there were lights every few minutes. You could see something, but most of it just looked like stars or satellites to me, or I don't know. Other people saw other things. That's each their own. This is just my experience, what I saw, what I was looking up at. And again, it was hard to see with that light coming in. My eyes were having a little bit of a tough time adjusting, but I could still see. Maybe not as good as I would have liked, but I could still.
All right, come on, Patty. Show us the vid, bud.
With this video, right? He says, time to pay attention. Nearly 1,000 people witnessed me predict it to be orange, and it would descend down beneath the clouds to be precisely at 9:45. When it went up, you can hear people say it's 9:47. Well, that's true. Well, that is 2 minutes behind. I mean, if we're being technical here. But 1,000 people, I did not see 1,000 people at this thing. 100, maybe 200 max. So I don't know where the 1,000 people is coming from, unless he was saying it throughout the conference. Does that make sense? Like, I just heard it at the event, but maybe he was saying it beforehand. Maybe that's what he means. I don't know. But regardless, so he shares this video. Let me play it for you.
All right, I'm gonna slow down the speed here, because after we see this, we're gonna move on. But let's put this at normal speed. So this is the video that Chris Bledsoe posted on his account that vetted Patrick was there for, and he thinks what he was looking at is a plane.
Are you filming it, anybody?
Yes.
Watch it. Is it 9:45? I said at 9:45 there would be something appearing. Thank you. 9:47, y'all. Is that right?
So here's my response that I put on Twitter that created a little bit of hoopla. Well, I was there in person for this. It was a plane. Sorry to report. Just being honest about what I saw. I was there over an hour, and everyone around me thought it was a plane too. Nothing descended down. It was a plane that flew by.
I mean, fair. Like, I honestly have no idea in this situation what it was. I wasn't there, but like, fair play to Patrick for posting this. Whether he's right or wrong, like, you know, he's being honest. That he's at least just being honest and not afraid to speak his mind. He's not afraid. You know, obviously Chris Bledsoe is like a big name in this space. Maybe you could say like people who have platforms, some people might be afraid to say what they really think about certain people out of fear of, you know, not getting them on a podcast or not getting an invite to a certain thing or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, fair play for him to just calling it how he sees it. Whether he's right or wrong, I think that takes a little bit of balls.
Now, let me explain my tweet a little bit, okay? All I'm saying is that the particular thing that they were pointing at, saying, right, flying by, was a plane. It was plain as day, no pun intended, there. And again, when I say everyone around me, the few people that were around me, we were all like, that's a plane.
Anyone
it was
flight
pretty
tracker?
obvious. You were there in person. And this is one of those things where you just had to be there, right? Like, I could see much clearer than any video is being shown. I also took video, but you can't see anything of this thing, right? The lighting was so low. I mean, here's an example. Like, it was just really hard to film. So, but with my naked eye, it was plain. I mean, you could just see it. It's crystal clear. This was a plane flying by. In fact, everyone's looking around each other like, that's just a plane, right? That's it. What are we talking about here? Now, again, that thing at the beginning, okay, that was interesting, right? But I don't.
There you go. There you go. How do you guys feel about that? By the way, we had a $20, a huge super chat coming in. That's going to be funding the new studio. Jerry Rogers sent in $20 and says, without Josh and the Polarity crew, I would be months behind trying to filter through muck and reality. Joshy, I not only respect you, but relate to you more than anyone else out here trying to piece this world together. Jerry, thank you, my man, for the very generous super chat. And the Polarity crew is me and my dog, Suki. Okay, I unfortunately seem to do a lot more heavy lifting than she does. She generally just asks for food and to be walked, but that's okay. We're a team and we make it work. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that a lot. And speaking of new studio, hopefully that's going to be in the next few days. We'll be moving in there, and when we move in, it may not be fully complete yet, so it might be like a bit of a, you know, piecing thing together process, but we'll get there. We will get there. It's also LARPy these days. It was better back in the day when there wasn't as much smoke and mirrors. So Adam, you think Chris Bledsoe's a fake? That's kind of what you're saying. You know, I'm not sure how I feel about this. I've always felt like Chris comes across as genuine, but when you say that, it's important to be careful of the fact that, and I'm not saying this is true, but it's important to remember that someone who's genuine might be having an experience that is genuine to them and in their mind that they actually believe, but it is not something that is like an objective part of reality, if that makes sense. About a month or two ago, I actually reached out to Ryan Bledsoe and just hit him up and basically I just said like, hey dude, I really like your attitude and the way you handle things. You know, I'd love to collab. I'd love to talk to him on the channel. And he never replied, which is fine. I'm sure he gets plenty of DMs and whatever. But the reason why I would like to talk to Ryan is because he seems very no bullshit. Like, he seems to be under the impression that a lot of the people in this space and around his dad are like shills. They are like trying to Benowitz him. They are people that are, when they, you know, when you report to MUFON or when people have these genuine experiences, these people that swoop in, like your Tim Taylors and your Chris Mellons and your whoever else, when they sniff of something legitimate that's happening, they swoop in and control the narrative and steer it either in the wrong direction or the direction that suits them the most. And Ryan seems to be very, not only like open to that fact, but like he doesn't give a fuck to talk about it. Like, he's happy to just call it how he sees it. So, you know, when you put that kind of attitude against someone like Patrick, who, you know, is kind of also calling it how he sees it, it's interesting because, like, what kind of story does that tell? So maybe one day we'll get the chance to speak to Ryan, because I think we could really pick his brain and just kind of get an idea of what he thinks is going on there. But that's it for our little opening stories for the show today, guys. We're going to move pretty quickly now into the meat, because there's a lot to get into here. We're going to be talking about the Tall Whites and the Nordics. First of all, we got a $10 super chat here from Paris Diamonds. Skywatchers should employ Bledsoe to do their summoning. I think I like that, and thank you, by the way, Paris. I like that idea. I think Skywatcher I want to make a graphic, actually. I will do this soon. I want to make a graphic that's like I want to make an actual sus meter, okay? And every now and then, you know, when we talk about new people, we're going to rank them on the susometer on, like, you know, because things change, right? Like when Skywatcher came out, they probably were quite low on the sus meter. I would say they're starting to climb the susometer, okay? They're getting towards that kind of orange zone. Because for a multitude of reasons, but we can talk about that in another video. But the susometer will be coming soon, and we can start throwing people up there. Now, George and a few others in the chat are already having this debate, and I'm glad, because it's actually going to be the first thing we throw in the poll today. I want to know what your consensus is, what the general consensus is when it comes to Nordics and Tall Whites. Are they the same thing? Because they seem to be used very interchangeably. People seem to refer to Nordics as these Scandinavian-looking, tall, beautiful, pale skin, golden hair. But then people also talk about the Tall Whites. And I've heard descriptions of the Tall Whites being like literally white skin, paper white skin with bigger eyes that kind of wrap around the head a little bit. That, you know, they sound a little bit different. I've heard descriptions that don't align with just a beautiful Scandinavian person. So it's interesting. I'm not too sure what to think of this. We're going to kind of talk about them in today's show as if they are maybe the same thing. But we're going to be looking at a lot of clips, and I'm going to give you a little story first. This is what delayed the show today, to just kind of let simmer in your mind while we go through these clips, and we can kind of discuss them as we go. But first of all, we're going to throw up a poll. And I'm just going to let this poll run. Are the Tall Whites and the Nordics the same species? I want to know what you guys think here. Now, this poll's going to be up. Maybe don't vote straight away, because we're about to do a little thought experiment here. Well, maybe it's not a thought experiment, but it's interesting. So we're going to get into some clips, right? But before we do, I just want to kind of read you this and just kind of get your mind thinking about some possibilities before we look at these clips. Now, I'm just going to move over here a little bit, because this is going to cut my face off in a little bit. So when we think about these Tall Whites, okay, these beautiful Nordic beings that are allegedly extremely intelligent, maybe a little bit taller than us, more advanced than us technologically, and seem to come from the sky or something like that, okay? We're just going to read through this, and then we're going to get into the clip. So first of all, religious texts, they often refer to angels as beautiful golden-haired beings that sort of, you know, radiate this aura and light, and that they have descended down from the sky. Then you've got the Hindu text, the Vedic text. They speak about Vimanas, which are these flying sort of disc or house-shaped machines operated generally by what they call devas, which are these beautiful, tall beings with glowing skin and like a divine aura. Okay, so you can kind of see a little similarity there. Then we fast forward to sort of pre-World War II, early 1900s, and this strange craft crashes in Magenta, Italy in 1933. We are told that the Germans gained possession of this craft after the Italians thought it was one of their wonder weapons. And during this time, the Germans are deeply involved and, you know, not only interested in just occultism, but this idea of this pure bloodline of an Aryan race, which they believe are these taller people with blonde hair and blue eyes. And they're so deeply ingrained in this stuff that their belief system leads them on this famous Antarctic expedition, which was in 1938 and 1939, where they claimed a large chunk of Antarctica as New Schwabenland. And it's said that that mission was to uncover like lost technology or artifacts that relate to this Aryan race. Okay, they were looking for things of like lost technology, essentially. Now, nobody really knows what they found, or even if they found anything at all, but somehow the Germans in that time and not long after that were able to completely leapfrog the rest of the world in technology, and not just by a little bit. Now, famously, the father of German rocketry, Hermann Oberth, is famously quoted by saying, "We cannot take credit for our record advancement in certain scientific fields alone. We have been helped, and we have been helped by the people of other worlds." And, you know, it's not just German rocketry. When you look at rocketry, early foundations of rocketry around the world, Jack Parsons, Tchaikovsky with the Russians, and you've also got, and we can talk about Tim Taylor in this as well, because he says the same thing, that all of these people seem to have their own version of a story about connecting with a higher intelligence that births these ideas in them to create these amazing advancements with rocketry and technology. Also, we have Joseph Farrell, who writes about the Haunebu, which was the name of the Germans' flying saucers, and they went through different iterations, famously 1, 2, and 3. You've also got Igor Wachowski, who is a Polish aerospace historian who wrote extensively about Die Glocke, which is a bell-shaped, allegedly, anti-gravity machine that the Germans were working on, okay, like the top secret deep black wonder weapons. And interestingly, this shape here is allegedly the same shape of the craft that was recovered in 1933 in Magenta, Italy, that we spoke about just before. Now, after the Germans lost the battle in World War II in December 1946, so not long after the war, Admiral Byrd led Operation High Jump and took nearly 5,000 troops to Antarctica on 13 ships and with 33 aircraft as well. This was the biggest Antarctic operation in history at the time. Now, this trip, this Operation High Jump, was originally planned to be 6 months long and was a scientific expedition. Okay, so just science, no war, nothing crazy going on. Why they brought 5,000 troops, 13 ships, and 33 aircraft, I don't know. Must be some kind of weird science. But whatever it was for, after 2 months, they cut it short, returned. They lost an aircraft. There were a handful of casualties. But there are reports that the losses were actually much greater than this. But just that is what's on the official record. Now, there are even rumors and reports that Admiral Byrd encountered flying discs with swastikas on them. Okay, none of this, there's no hard evidence for this out there that exists. These are just claims. However, he is on record. There is video of him talking about how the United States should begin to get prepared to deal with aircraft that have the ability to fly from pole to pole at incredible speeds. Then, it's only a few years later, 1952, where flying saucers specifically were famously seen hovering over the White House 2 weekends in a row. What does that mean? No one really knows. But to me, it could be definitely be seen as like a standover move. It seems like perhaps something was like big dogging the White House, letting them know who's in charge, what kind of technology these people have, and what they could really do. That's just a theory. That's not fact. But given everything we've just spoken about, you could maybe see how it fits. And even more interestingly, a few years later, the lead Nazi rocket engineer Werner von Braun was famously appointed as the director of the Marshall Space Flight Center and developed the Saturn V rocket, helping place America on the moon. So I just wanted to lay that out there, okay, and let that simmer. The poll is still up. You can still vote on what you think, but we're now going to get into some clips, okay? So let's just let that little quick history lesson simmer in the back of the mind. That little slideshow and story is why we're a little bit late today, so hopefully you enjoyed that. And we're going to get straight into the next set of clips. So the first one here is Richard Dolan. By the way, a few of these clips that we're going to be looking at here are from Area 52, or Chris Ramsey's little mini doco that he made from his time at Contact in the Desert. Now, I actually don't think it's linked in the description yet. However, if you're watching this back, I will make sure the link is there afterwards because it is fantastic. It's really just a series of interviews cut together, but it's just really cool. I really, really enjoyed this documentary. So shout out to Chris. If you enjoy these clips, I highly recommend you go and check out the full thing.
They had another friend, a female friend, and they were at a
Okay, we don't want to watch Richard on 2x speed. We'll try 1.25.
Las Vegas casino. And he said, this guy, by the way, knew a lot about the UFO subject. But he said, we're on our own time. We're hanging out at a casino. I think it was the Wynn, actually, which is a great casino hotel. But I can't recall. He said, we're up there. We're on the second floor. And our friend, who he said was a psychic, she stops two of them. And she says, that woman over there is not human. And they look over and there's this very beautiful blonde woman in a striking blue outfit. Now, it's Las Vegas.
Yeah.
You get that there.
Sure. Blue is interesting too.
Oh, yes, yes. She and his wife get scared. And they go down the escalator, which is right there. The current...
Guys, Eversaw in the chat has just said there's no such thing as UFOs, they're all planes. So I guess we'll just end the stream here. Everything, the thousands of people who have reported on UFOs for the last couple of centuries are all wrong. Eversaw has solved it. So pack up, go home. Thanks for being here. And I'll see you guys all next time. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Colonel is hanging behind and he's looking at this woman. And he said to me, and that's when I heard her in my mind. She turned slightly, and he said, I heard her. She sounded like a cop on the beat. Like, nothing to see here. Go about your business. You don't belong. Like, and he's like, how did I get that thought? And at that moment, she's joined by this beautiful blonde man wearing blue. Again, are you thinking Cirque du Soleil? Like, I don't know what this could be. But so they're hanging out. They're conferring. He doesn't hear anything at this point. So then they start walking toward the escalator where he is. So this guy's a colonel. He has a PhD. He's a sharp guy. And he's thinking, I am going to talk to these people. I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to talk to them. I want to find out what the hell is going on here. So they walk toward him, and instead he says nothing. They get on the escalator, they go down, but then he gets behind them. And he said to me, I heard them conversing in their minds. I said, do you know that they weren't talking? He says, look, I'm pretty damn sure they weren't talking. I'm hearing. What were they saying? Well, they were saying something like, yeah, he can hear us. No, he's not important. He's not part of the program, or he's not part of anything we need to worry about. At this point, his wife interjected in the story. She was hilarious. She's like, oh yes, I remember this. My friend and I were peeking around the slot machines like this, like hiding behind the slot machine. So that was kind of nice little confirmation there. But anyway, so the couple gets down to the bottom of the escalator and they walk out and they're gone. So then the three of them are conferring and they're like, that was crazy. So the woman, the psychic friend, also did regressive hypnosis. And she says, you know, I could regress you, Colonel, so that maybe you can relax and maybe you can remember if there's anything more that you can remember about what you think you heard. I guess that was the plan. So he's like, all right, cool. So he goes a day or two later, he's at her place in this cul-de-sac, quiet neighborhood. And he said, every time that she tried to regress me, we heard like construction noise outside, like jackhammers. They would go out to look and they didn't see anything. So he says, no biggie. I'll be back in about a month. Maybe we can get together and do this then. She's like, great. So a month later, he calls her. He says, hey, I'm going to be in town. Can we do that regression? She says, what regression? The regression last month, Las Vegas. Apparently, she remembered nothing of this encounter. I have one more story that I have to tell you.
Richard Dolan looks like he's had a few wobbly pops. Maybe he might have. He deserves it. You know, I'm a big Richard Dolan fan. I would say Richard Dolan is probably one of my favorite people to listen to. The reason why I like Richard Dolan is because I relate to him a lot. I feel like he is, you know, he doesn't necessarily claim to have the answers, which neither do I, and I don't think you should be sus on anyone who does. But he's also not afraid to kind of give you his opinion And I think that's important too. I feel like so many people in this space are like scared of just kind of saying what they think, maybe out of the fear of being wrong. But I feel like there's nothing wrong with having an opinion and letting that opinion change. Like, I tell you guys what I think all the time. And then sometimes I'm wrong, and then I'll change it. You know, we're all constantly learning. Our opinions are constantly changing. But Richard he's got a water next to him. So I don't know, maybe he's had a few too many beers and he's now on the waters. And if that is the case, props to Chris for catching him at the right time. Because I would like, if I was going to interview anyone, who might know a thing or two about UFOs, I'd 100% want to get a few beers in them first, just to, loosen them up a little bit. Maybe I'll let something slip. If I ever interview Ross Coulthard, definitely going to try and feed him a few beers. And then once his eyes start going a little bit, we're going to start hitting him with where is that big UFO, brother? Where is it? Tell me. $20 super chat, another huge one coming in from With Me. For all your work, Chad from Northern Alaska up here in the Arctic. Thank you for all your work, brother. Chad, you are an absolute Chad. Thank you for the $20, man. That's a huge contribution. I really appreciate that. And another $2 from Bear Market Vibes. You second that. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate that support. Having an open mind is what has us all here right now. Absolutely. It's the most important way to be. I think anyone who's talking in absolutes in this space is someone to be sus on. And again, that's why I really like Richard Dolan. And, some people just carry and exude a good energy. And for me, Richard is one of those guys. Just seems like a really good guy. And maybe one day we'll get him on the show. I'll try my best. Hey, Josh, show us your girlfriend's feet. Suki. Sorry. She doesn't want to come on camera right now. The big UFOs under the Korean intelligence building. Look, a lot of people talk about the Korean UFO and the whole Ross Coulthard thing. Like when I made the first video on the big UFO, a lot of people in the comments were like, it's in South Korea. And I've heard the South Korea thing. Like I knew that before that video, but the reason why I didn't talk about it is because one of the big things that Ross talks about is that it's like, it has a lot to do with the Five Eyes Alliance. Now, I don't know if there's some kind of weird, way that the Five Eyes relates to North Korea. Definitely not North Korea, South Korea. Perhaps there is. I'm not sure if so, but that's the reason why I never bring it up, because it doesn't really fit with the clues that we have. But if anyone can tell me why South Korea is connected to Five Eyes, let me know. Let me know, because I'm open to hearing it. Okay, Suki wants to go out now. I think she got weirded out by people wanting to see her feet, so just give me 1 second. Okay, let's keep going. We got another Richard Dolan story here that we're going to check out.
Walks up to my table with her husband, and she says, I got a story for you. Can I tell you? Like, yeah. So she says, when I was 15 years old, it would be about 1965, I was in church in Western Pennsylvania in a tiny little town with my mother. And she said, in our town, everyone knew everyone, especially in church. So she's in church. So she said, in front of me, in front of the aisle ahead of us, were this blonde couple, male, female, come walking in. She says they were absolutely gorgeous. They looked like supermodels. She said they had this incredible blue clothing. I was looking at the fabric. She's a 15-year-old girl, so she's into fashion. She said, I have never seen such incredible, beautiful clothing. And she's marveling and thinking, why is no one else in this church looking at these two people? She said they stuck out like a sore thumb. It's like, Marilyn Monroe and, Cary Grant.
How could you not stare at them?
Yeah. So, but no one was noticing them apparently. And then she said to me, And that's when I heard them in my mind. And what she heard was one of them thinking to the other, something like, well, we appear to be fitting in pretty well here. And she's like, and then one of them, maybe the same one, I don't know, said, except for the girl behind us who can hear us. And that's what she's like, practically freaking out. After that, she heard nothing. It's like they shut it down. The other thing she said about them is that they're in mass and they didn't really know how to, this is a Catholic mass, which I grew up doing. You know, sit, kneel, sign of the cross, all that. They're like looking around. They don't know what to do. So they clearly did not fit in.
Just trying to fit in.
Right. So it gets better. So she goes through the whole mass.
What I find strange about this story, though, is like, why would these people be sitting there in a church going, we appear to be fitting in? Like, that's, I'm not trying to say the story is bullshit, by the way, but like that, you know, these are weird details. These are weird details.
Mass ends, the couple is up and out, and they book it out of the church. And she decides, I'm going after them. And she's following. They go down this hill. There's a field.
This is weird.
And there's a wooded area. So they're not going to a parking lot or a car. So that's kind of interesting too. Let's just like note that little, describe that little bit. So she's going across the field. She's going down the hill, and then she stops dead in her tracks. She said, then I saw a third person at the entrance of the wooded area. She says, remember Lurch from the Addams Family?
No.
Looked just like that guy.
Terrifying.
Very tall.
So creepy.
Like a man in black, but very tall, kind of ungainly tall. Hat and a black suit, apparently. And this beautiful blonde supermodel couple.
Dude, you know what that sounds like? That sounds like Men in Black. Like this, remember the Men in Black clip that we looked at a couple of weeks ago? This explanation, other than the hat, sounds exactly like this Lurch character. Exactly like it.
From Venus or Pleiades or wherever they're from, walk past him into the woods. Into the woods. He turns around and follows them, and that was her story.
I mean,
That's wild, right? So there are these, this is two different stories of beautiful people, blonde, tall, wearing blue, and not only telepathic with each other, but seem to be able to sense when people around them are thinking about them or can notice them or are sus on them. Like a sixth sense, perhaps you could say, in some form. Are these blondes controlling everything? Well, Rusty, that is kind of the point of today's show. That is the point of today's show, is that it seems like that may be a reasonable suggestion, or maybe not even running everything, but at the very least, in some form of control, some form of like control that is not publicly known about. Lurch is a tall white, confirmed. Why would an alien couple go to church? Makes total sense. Yeah. I mean, the only thing that I can think of is perhaps, I mean, like we said in that story earlier, right? We looked at how these beings seem to appear, or beings that sound like this seem to appear in all of these ancient religious texts. I don't know, perhaps they're checking in to see like how people are interpreting or worshipping these things in the modern day. Perhaps they're just interested in the way we live, the same way we are interested in the way monkeys form groups and, you know, like their hierarchies in nature. Could be like the same thing. Walking with the Tall Whites by Charles Hall. Yep, we're going to be looking at him in this video as well. In appearance, they run the show, but it's still a deception. They take the appearance that fits their deception. Interesting. Yeah, so people are talking about Ross Coulthart when he first let out the bomb that he was that there was a giant UFO. It was on Project Unity's interview, and yes, Ross did look like he'd had a few wobbly pops in that one as well. But also, the time zone difference for the UK to Australia is horrible. It's probably like 3 a.m. there now. So it could have also have been an interview that took place at a really shit time for Ross, and he could have just looked really tired, or both, or not, or he was just drunk. I don't know. But one thing I'm pretty confident on is that he would deeply regret saying that, because he's never been able to live it down. It's typically a hybrid test to insert themselves into society and navigate through a scenario. Yeah, well, there are lots of people who say that they look just like us and they're already here and they walk among us. Now, we're going to hear from James Fox as well in this one, but we've actually got a witness testimony which I want to show you guys, which I just found extremely compelling, because I've talked to you guys on this show before, and I've kind of said this, how, you know, there are some people that you listen to that just, and you know, this is, we're talking about intuition now, right? You have to use your intuition, but there are some people that you listen to, and you listen to them speak, you watch their body language, you look at their eyes when they're talking, and you can just feel that this person is telling the truth. Like, you can feel it. They're not lying. You can see it. And there are some people who kind of feel that way, but maybe, you know, you kind of have a little 10% reservation. I think when you have any reservation, then you should never go all in. But there are some people that speak and you're just like, wow, like that hits hard. That's compelling. And, you know, the stupid excuse is like, oh, they're just trying to get attention. Like, you know, nobody's getting good attention from telling these stories. Okay. Even today, when disclosure is at its probably, let's just say, height in popularity, where it's, you know, the more mainstream than it's ever been, people still get shat on and ridiculed for saying these things. Okay. No one's getting famous. No one's getting anything good from saying these things. But anyway, take a look at what you hear, what you think about this story from this lady here.
All I can describe, this huge Mexican hat. It was stationary, this thing.
A Mexican hat. Already, like, such a unique and interesting and an interesting, unique way to depict what we call a flying saucer or something like that.
And it was bright silver in colour, and it had a dome. A dome. It was tilted to sort of, I could see the occupants in it.
You saw people in it?
I saw people in it. There were 2 people in there. These people were beautiful people. That's the only way I can describe them. They had long golden hair, like a page boy bob, just like the old kings. You used to see photographs of the old kings. And the colour of the hair was golden. Now, I was really...
What were they dressed in?
They had a sort of a...
I bet there's still some people on X going, like, calling her a grifter. 100% there'd be people calling her like a grifter. Get out of your mum's basement.
Polo neck jumper affair, like a ski top suit, in pale blue. Now, these people weren't sat behind, one behind the other. They were sat together, but this, whatever it was tilted so that I could see them and they could see me. They had beautiful faces. I shall never forget their faces as long as I live. Their foreheads seemed to be a bit larger than, you know, the bottom of their faces as normal people you would expect to see. But maybe this was just whatever they had around their heads.
Can I just say, sorry to interrupt again, but this specific AI image looks so much like the image, like it's not the same image, but like the person looks very, very similar to the person the image that was posted along with the 4chan leaks earlier in the year. Like, remember the video I did on the Antarctica one where there was like the egg and apparently the being that was in like a bathtub type thing. And then like a few weeks later, this like weird sort of AI looking image surfaced. That image looked exactly like this person here. It's not the same image at all, but the person looks so similar. If anyone else knows the picture that I'm talking about, let me chuck it in Discord so I can show it on the stream, because I don't know if I'll be able to find it right now, but so similar.
Which was like a transparent fishbowl. And they just looked. And I was absolutely paralytic with fear. I couldn't move, although my mind was ticking over. And they looked so sympathetic.
I find that part so interesting too, how she goes, they looked so sympathetic. Like the way you would look at something you just feel so sorry for. That's creepy. That is extremely creepy, actually. But again, this is this lady who, you know, doesn't come across as someone who's trying to get a following on X. Doesn't look like she's trying to sell a book. She called the flying saucer a Mexican hat. Like, this lady is just telling you what she saw, and it just aligns with so many things. Golden hair, beautiful, using technology that she can't explain. Like, I don't know. It's just why, like, I can't help but buy into this story specifically.
Then, you know.
Crazy. Now, guys, we've still got the poll up, by the way, and I'm not going to close it off just yet. We've had 176 votes, and it's split in the way of, are the tall whites and the Nordics the same species? It seems like you guys are just as confused as I am, because these things seem to be described very similarly, but not quite the same. And there's not a whole distinction. Then you've got like the Pleiadians, which also are described as having this similar Nordic look. So there's all these different names, but I don't know. Orlando Bloom as Legolas looks Nordic. Yeah, yeah, he does. He does look how the Nordics are described 100%. How come we don't see the common saucer craft as much anymore? Mike, my opinion on that is, one, probably older technology. Okay, I think whatever had that in the 30s, 40s, 50s perhaps has evolved technologically like we have. However, I also think as we have technologically adapted and evolved and been able to not only sense and photograph these things, but with the internet, we have the ability to share it and share the information out and corroborate data. They have then probably had to adapt to avoid that, okay? Because it's quite obvious that whatever it is doesn't want to be known about, doesn't want to be seen. And I'm just going to go off on a tangent with my own theory here. I think that's maybe because if we knew what they were or what they are, that would perhaps give us answers as to why we're here and what is actually going on with the world. And those answers would be disturbing to us, and as Lou Elizondo said, would be extremely somber, would make us reevaluate who we are and where we stand in the hierarchy as beings, and that it would radically shift the way we look at things, and that we might realize that just like a dog to us is like a lower intelligent species that is useful to us, that is helpful to us. You know, we don't want, you know, we're not here to take over dogs and kill them. We like them. They're helpful to us. We use them. They have a purpose to us. Well, we may have a purpose to them, but we are probably intelligent enough that, and emotional enough that if we realize that, it might make us flip in some way. And that is potentially why the truth of disclosure is guarded so tightly, because it's not just about, you know, little aliens in the sky. It's about the meaning of our existence And the reality is that we're just like one tiny cog in a massive machine, and that we're not important, we're not significant. Our individual lives don't really matter in the grand scale of things. And I think they're scared on what kind of effect that could have on us. Again, that's just a little theory. I can't tell you that's 100% true. But it tracks. It makes sense. You know, Nick Pope talks about the terrible truth theory. You know, I can't help but think like, you know, people like Sean Kirkpatrick, for example, and this whole Wall Street Journal thing. People are saying we are significant, we are significant. Of course we're significant to each other, but in the grand scheme of things, in the infinite amount of space and life in the whole universe, I think it's probably a bit arrogant to think we're like more special than anything else. I think like we're all just equal. Okay, we're not special is what I'm saying. What I was getting at is with the Wall Street Journal thing and Sean Kirkpatrick, right? Those people, Sean Kirkpatrick is clearly must know something, okay? Because he is on the side that is trying to keep disclosure away. Now, you could think that maybe he knows something, or maybe not. Maybe that's wrong. But people are guarding the truth so heavily. I feel like money and power probably is a facet of it, but I think there is more to it. And I think it's because they're afraid of the repercussions of how people will react. And people say, oh, we can handle the truth. But I think people think that, like when people say that, they think the truth is just like aliens exist or, you know, God is real or whatever. Right. But then it's like, yeah, but I think it could be a whole heap of things. I think it could literally be a whole heap of things like, yeah, God is real. And that's one thing. And then also aliens are real. And there's some of them that have been here living in our oceans, steering and guiding humanity for thousands of years. But there's also this other species when we actually let off the nuclear bomb for the first time that alerted them to our existence. They came here and have started manipulating us. And there's also this other species here that seems to be interested in our DNA. And we've also got their technology, but we can't let anyone know because that'll destroy, you know what I mean? Like, it's so complicated. This isn't just, I don't think this isn't a single faceted issue. There is a whole range of things here that I think and some of them may not even be related to each other in the direct sense, but they're only related because we lump it all into the phenomenon, because anything we can't understand or explain is just the phenomenon, right? Whether it's crazy technology, where it's like spiritual stuff, weird occult practices, non-human intelligences, it's all just the phenomenon, right? But I think there's just so much in there that that's why disclosure is so complicated and why it will probably be pretty ground shaking and reality changing for a lot of people, even for people who are interested in this subject. I think, you know, because there's levels to it, right? There's like, oh yeah, UFOs are interesting. What are they? And then there's people who are like, you know, the aliens are working with the United States deep underground in Dulce, New Mexico, and there's been an agreement of hybridization. You know what I mean? Like, there's levels to what you think the phenomenon is. And I think people who are maybe like only have their toes or ankles in the water may still get their mind blown when they actually figure it out. And then you've got people who are balls deep who will just be like, told ya. A lot of people saying Jupiter Ascending in the chat. I have heard that movie is like a soft disclosure. I've never seen it though. Maybe we can watch it in Discord. Guys, by the way, if you're in Discord, if you go to the events channel, I have a poll up at the moment on what video you want to watch next. What movie we're going to watch together next. At the moment, Stargate is winning. I've never seen Stargate, but I'm glad that that's winning because I'm excited. I want to see Stargate. I'm looking forward to that one. All right, let's take a look at the next clip here. We're sticking with Chris Ramsey. He did a stellar job with this thing. And we're going to now look at James Fox, okay? His first clip starts at 12:33. And while he's talking, I'm going to run to the bathroom, but I have my headphones on and I'm still listening. Behave yourselves while I'm gone.
Yeah, sure. He'd love to meet you. Come to his house. So I went to his house. 2009, 2010. I'd have to look up the emails somewhere around there. And we had lunch. And he started talking about, the implications of disclosure, the impacts on society. I remember him saying, you take every scandal from Iran Contra to Monica Lewinsky, all these scandals in the history of modern history, and multiply them, the impact those have had, multiply that by 1 million, and that's the impact this reality would have on the general public. And I remember thinking, come on, really? You really think so? I've always thought we really had this unifying effect on everybody. And then he goes, and they're walking among us. And I said, what do you mean? What do you mean they're walking among us? He goes, I mean exactly that. They're walking among us. I had something happen to me a couple years earlier, which I've never spoken about ever, because I would know. And even that, when that happened, I didn't talk to anybody about it. No one. And even when he told me that, I still didn't talk about it. Because I had saw something one time in 2007.
So 2 years.
Okay. Hope you guys were being good while I was gone. Sorry, I forgot to say as well, he's talking about Robert Bigelow there, okay? So the owner of Bigelow Aerospace also owned Skinwalker Ranch for a little while. So Robert Bigelow, who spent a lot of time investigating this stuff, a lot of his own money, millions, maybe even, maybe not billions, but a lot of money investigating this stuff. And from what I understand, Bob Bigelow got to the point where he kind of not withdrew from it, but got to the point where he was kind of like, I understand this stuff enough now, pulled away from it, and says, and is under the belief that they walk among us. They walk among us. Just remember that. Just remember that, okay? We had the little history lesson. We're hearing a few speeches now. Just remember, there's a few key parts to remember here as the show goes on, because we're gonna keep weaving them all together. Now, the next part of James Fox's story starts about here, and this is a personal story that James Fox had never told before. Again, if you're enjoying these clips, highly recommend you go and check this out. The poll right now is at 50-50. I'm glad everyone is confused, just like me.
I made eye contact with this individual, and it was like an immediate, and I'd never really considered this even in the realm of possibility. And I still don't know what I think, to be honest with you, what I really believe at the end of the day. But we had a telepathic, just like that.
Can you describe what the situation was and what this individual looked like?
I don't know if I want to go public fully on where it was, but it happened in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Yeah. And the individual looked like relatively a normal person. And the individual...
Sorry, excuse my ignorance here as an Australian, but can Americans help me in the chat? When James Fox here is saying this happened at Washington, D.C., I interpret that as is he actually talking about the Capitol? He's talking about this happened in some kind of high-level political setting / area? Or is Washington, D.C. just could mean the whole city or something like that? Can someone interpret that for me? Because to me, I'm thinking he's saying that this happened in a political high-level place. Debbie says, I interpret it as the White House. Me too. Yeah, okay. It could mean the whole city. That's the whole Washington, D.C. is a whole city. Okay, so it's not quite clear. When he says it, I interpret it as the White House or something, and it feels that way, the way that he says it, but Washington, D.C. is a whole city. So Just relax. Let's not get too carried away.
I remember was doing like, it was like moving a chair or something like that. And this individual sensed that I was looking at him for whatever reason, kind of doing this, like maybe dragging a chair, and then turned around and looked me right in the eyes. And it was like, holy shit. Like in myself, I wasn't scared, but it was like you're not human. Like, but it was really, the individual knew that was the communication that the individual gave to me, and knew that I had received it. And
it knew that you knew.
Yes. Like in an instant. And I knew, it knew, and I was okay. Big blue, like electric blue eyes, like piercing, like freeze in your tracks when you got when I made eye contact. I never told a soul because I sound like a crazy guy, and I don't know what I don't even know what I saw.
So
I'm just telling you what that was the communication that happened, and it happened like that, like that, and I wasn't scared.
What do they look like?
The eyes?
No, what did the person look like? Was
like
it
a normal person, dark skin?
Yeah.
Relatively. Not sure of the ethnicity. I'm not
wasn't
sure.
Swedish or anything. Wasn't like Scandinavian.
No.
Tall, particularly. Do you remember?
No, not tall.
Just
no,
regular
normal.
looking.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
What made you look in that direction?
I don't know. And I just remember it was like, you know, it was immediate.
And you knew.
Immediate communication. Just fucking bam, like that. And I wasn't scared. And then I went about my business and I never talked about it.
But it stuck with you.
Oh, fuck yeah. Yeah. But I didn't believe it. I didn't even believe it. You see my point? Like, I didn't believe that happened to me. But then I'm hearing other people talk about it, you know, Timothy Good, and then Bigelow, the alleged encounter in the desert from 1994, Nell's test range that Mr. Sands talks about. I don't know. Did it happen? Do these things happen? Are they walking among us? I don't know.
That's wild. So the interesting part about that clip there is the fact that he says they had dark skin and they weren't tall, but still that sort of electric blue eyes and instant telepathic communication. And yes, I agree. So he says that this happened in Washington, D.C., and that he doesn't want to reveal the location, the specifics. So I think we could agree that this is likely a sensitive location, i.e. the White House or something to that effect. And that whoever this person was is someone who is maybe in some way in the public sphere, because he didn't want to say who it was. Which leads us on to, I think we might just go straight into the next clip, because I think before we get too carried away, and I have played this clip before, quite a few times actually, so if you're a regular viewer, I apologize, but there's probably new people who haven't seen it. But I also am a really big fan, and I hope you guys are too, of kind of just going over old clips when we're piecing things together, because this really is like the whole Charlie board, right? You know, with the red string everywhere and the mad conspiracy guy. Like, let's not kid. Like, that's what this is. That's what we're doing here. So if you can't already tell, we're going to be looking just at not the whole clip, just at what Robert Dean has to say in this clip.
When I was assigned to the war room, I learned that a study had been initiated in 1960.
Sorry, just to quickly clarify, if you don't know who Robert Dean is, he held the top secret, the highest secret clearance available in NATO, was retired in 76, so was, you know, in these positions through the 50s and 60s.
The war room, I learned that a study had been initiated in 1961, and everybody was talking about it. They were gossiping about it. And the subject was UFOs, and that intrigued me a bit. When that study was concluded in 1964 and it was published, and I was still working in the war room at that time, I had access to this document. I had a chance to read it. And having been exposed to it, I must tell you honestly that my life has never ever quite been the same. Because I read first-hand reports, verifiable NATO military material that indicated that the UFOs were not only real, but they represented something far beyond anything I had ever imagined before. When the study was concluded in
Again, sorry, with that lady that we watched just before, when there are some people that you watch and you look at like their eyes, the cadence of their speech, you can feel the emotion. Like at the very least, I know that he thinks he's telling the truth. At the very least, I know that he thinks he's telling the truth. Someone said, has NATO cosmic clearance ever been acknowledged that it really exists? Yes, you can actually go on the NATO website and look it up. I've done it. The first time I did a video on Bob Dean, I got the screenshot up to show you guys that, yes, I know it sounds like a joke.
Concluded that
the hell? I didn't press play. It sounds like a joke, cosmic top secret. It sounds like something from Star Wars, but it is actually real. You can look it up.
there were 4 different groups apparently coming and visiting us. Out of those 4 different groups, one group looked exactly like we do, so much so that they could sit beside you in a restaurant or in an airplane or in a theater, and you'd never know. And that particular point bothered the military guys a lot. The point being that some of these people from somewhere could be walking up and down the corridors of SHAPE headquarters, or they could be walking up and down the corridors of the Pentagon. One day at lunch, a lieutenant colonel made the remark, he says, Jesus, do you realize they could even be in the White House?
There it is. There it is. And this this interview, I think, was like early 2000s. And like I said, though, Robert Dean retired in 1976. A lot of people saying Robert Dean comes across as more believable than James Fox. I think the problem that people have with James Fox is similar to the problem that people have with Jeremy Corbell. They are both 2 dudes who are filmmakers, interestingly, who are like enamored and very excited by this topic. And I feel like that, excitement can sometimes come across as like, I don't want to say a lack of intelligence, but like a lack of depth of knowledge, perhaps. And I'm not saying that's the case. I'm just saying that excitement can sometimes, people can perceive it like that. Whereas people like Robert Dean, who I agree the way he speaks is far more compelling, 100%. But Robert Dean also has a history in the military. He also is a lot older. He comes from a different time, a time where, people actually spoke to each other and not just through Instagram messages, okay? He actually spent most of his life talking to people in real life, not like us. So he's probably better at it. He's probably just straight up better at talking. But I think those things do kind of get... Also as well, I think when people are like excited and a little bit like, I think people see Jeremy Corbell's excitedness and it annoys them because we're talking about a serious subject, or maybe it annoys them for whatever reason. And that's fine. But I think people allow like their personal, like, or his voice is annoying or the way he talks bothers me. They like confuse that with, that means he's lying. Do you know what I mean? Like someone like Stephen Greer is the classic example, right? Stephen Greer says a lot of things, some of which may be true, some of which may be not. But you can't deny, I mean, he's been in the game for a long time. I think there's at least elements of truth to what he's saying. But he comes across like a knobhead, okay? We can all agree with that, okay? If anyone, like, we all agree with that. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't, like, now just write him off completely, because he could be, like, don't let your personal feelings to the way someone is get in the way of, like, listening to the things that they're saying, is what I'm trying to get at here. So much skepticism both ways in this chat. Polarity, you need some moderators. I can't say I've seen anything that I feel like needs to be moderated personally. I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with people being skeptic. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I'm not trying to tell people what they have to think on the show. I'm just giving you guys my opinion. Some of you agree with it, some of you don't. That's fine. That's what it's about, really. It's about people's opinion. And the only thing I would say to that is, like, as long as you're not married to your opinion, you know, if you think, for example, Robert Dean is a grifter, and then something comes out that proves that he isn't. Something comes out that proves that he isn't. If you then die on that sword that he's a grifter because you made that opinion publicly and you're too, like, proud to go back on it or change it, that's a problem. Okay, there's nothing wrong with changing opinions. Just, you know, that's healthy. You should be willing to kind of float around with given new information. Crazy T, yeah, I don't see animosity in the chat. Yeah, 100%. I don't actually think I have any moderators here at the moment, so you're lucky. Everyone's behaving. We're all getting along. This is good. I mean, I can moderate the chat myself, but I don't think we need to. I think Elizondo's a knobhead. Once CIA, always CIA. How good is the term knobhead, by the way? Like, it's such a good way to refer to someone who's, like, kind of annoying, but it's not too derogatory. You know what I mean? Like, it's kind of just like a soft way to give your firm opinion of someone. Thumbs up for knobhead. I get you, he's a complete bell, but he can still know some stuff. Mark says it's the first time he's heard knobhead. Yeah, look, that might be an Aussie or maybe even an English slang. I don't know. I mean, we probably stole it from the Brits, let's be fair. Is what it is. Jeremy seems impulsive. Yeah, he is. Americans need to adopt the word knobhead. Yeah, guys, use it. It's open source, free for all. I'm not gonna copyright you guys. Go wild with knobhead. The only Aussie slang I know is flat out like a lizard drinking. Flat out like a lizard drinking. Okay, see, I feel like that might be one of those things, like how people around the world think we drink Foster's beer. Like, you go to England and, like, they have all these Aussie pubs with Foster's everywhere. We don't drink Foster's, okay? Nobody drinks Foster's. I think flat out like a lizard might be like that. I feel like I've kind of heard it. I think it's referring to, like, if a lizard is drinking, it gets ran over. That's why it's flat. I don't know. Anyway, we're talking about UFOs and tall whites running the world here, so let's not get too off track. I wonder if the tall whites drink Foster's or any beer. Who knows? Anyway, let's get back to where we were. Speaking of Australians, this ties us perfectly into the next section, actually, because someone who's famous for speaking about tall whites and not just speaking about them, but working alongside them, and the fact that America has been working with tall whites for decades is a man named Charles Hall. Now, something else that's interesting about Charles Hall is that Jesse Michaels, I reckon it was like 2 months ago now. I could be wrong, but it was a while ago. Jesse Michaels said that he's interviewing Charles Hall. And when he said that, I was like, damn, like, that's going to be a great interview, because, like I said, this guy says he worked face to face and had relationships with tall whites in, you know, working underground in, like, Nevada, okay, in, like, the 70s. That was 2 months ago, and I know the interviews happened, but it's still not out. And so I don't, and look, I could just be overthinking or speculating on something that is nothing, but I wonder if Jesse did that interview and is maybe like, what's the word? Like, you know, after sitting down and talking to him was kind of like, I don't know if I want to release this. Like, this, you know, maybe he's like, after sitting down with him, the vibe and impression that he got from Charles Hall was like, I don't know about this guy. I don't know. I'm just completely speculating there. I just think it's weird the interview hasn't come out yet. But who knows? chances are, now that I've said this, it's probably going to come out tomorrow, and I'm going to look like an idiot. Adam Huglow says, does Valiant Thor fit here? No, but Adam, Valiant Thor fits in a video that's going to be coming out tonight about a person that rhymes with drill glider. That's where Valiant Thor fits in, and we'll touch on him in that video. So for the Americans, when you guys go to sleep, you're going to wake up with a nice little present under the Polarity tree. We're going to be talking about someone who rhymes with drill glider. Okay, let's have a look at this clip here. So, like I said, linking into Australia. By the way, the poll is still at 50-50. We've got nearly 300 votes, and no one can work out if tall whites and Nordics are the same species. So I was looking for a bit of Charles Hall, okay, because obviously he's famous for talking about the tall whites. And then I found this Australian interview with him. Okay, so this is on Australian TV with Charles Hall from 2013. And I just want to say, before we watch it, that this guy interviewing him is the biggest knobhead I've ever seen. Makes Australians look like losers, and just, and I'm aware that I might just be feeling this because I'm Australian, and I understand like just the cringy energy and nature that this guy is trying to, this guy is giving. And it may be like a uniquely Australian thing. I'm interested to see what you guys think. I'm sure you guys will think he's a knobhead too, at the very least. But it's very cringy. But so let's look at how cringy he is. But more so, let's look at Charles Hall talking about working alongside the tall whites in the 70s.
Do you wonder what might lie out there deep in space? Do you want to believe we're not alone, that somewhere in the universe, intelligent life may actually exist?
Our next guest says there is life out there. It does exist. Dr. Charles Hall says he spent 2 years working with extraterrestrial beings during his time with the American military. He claims the US military has actually been in contact with alien species for years. And Dr. Charles Hall is here to explain, along with his wife Marie, live from what Bugs Bunny used to call Albuquerque, New Mexico. Now,
so cringe, bro. Like, you didn't have to do that.
Thank you both for your time. Terrific to have you with us. Firstly, Charles, can you tell us your story of how you managed to come into contact with these beings as you worked with the military?
I'm a Vietnam veteran, and I enlisted in the Air Force in July 1964, and I was trained as a weather observer. And I was sent to Nellis Air Force Base, Nevada, outside Las Vegas, Nevada. And for 2.5 years, I was sent up to the gunnery ranges up at Indian Springs, and I was given a clearance to allow me to go anywhere in Dreamland, as long as I was alone. I discovered that up there at the north end of Indian Springs Valley, which you can see on the map, in the state of Nevada here in America, that there was a base which the U.S. Air Force maintained for a group of extraterrestrials who were tall and white. And I, as the duty weather observer, was allowed to go up there, or they were allowed to come down to where I was. And the interaction took place over more than 2 years.
Wow.
During those 2 years, I also came across, I also interacted to a lesser extent with the Roswell Greys, and I've also personally talked with the extraterrestrials that I call the Norwegians with 24 teeth, who come here from a very nearby star, perhaps Bernard star. And
so that's interesting. Okay, we'll keep watching the rest, but he just actually differentiated the poll for us. He's saying that the tall whites are different to the Nordic beings. Polarity, what about the thick whites? We don't need, there's evidence of those all over Instagram. A lot of people commenting on his wife. It is kind of funny that she's there in the interview. She actually does speak later in the interview as well. Heidi Stanley's entered the chat. Thank you. Welcome, Heidi. We actually have a moderator now, so if anyone is misbehaving, you're going to get a smack. Not that you have been. You've all been very well behaved. I'm proud of you all. She's controlling him. No, you will hear from her in a moment. People are saying his voice is putting you to sleep. Okay, so my opinion on the Jesse Michaels thing that I just spoke about, that opinion was formulated mainly after watching this. Now, I'm not trying to say that he's not believable, but I could see perhaps why, after Jesse Michaels sat down for 3 hours or whatever, like he normally does with him, could maybe feel a little bit unsure on if he wants to upload it or not. Or he thinks he might have to edit it heavily to like be happy before he upload it. That's just total speculation on my part. I don't know. I don't have inside info. I'm just totally speculating. All right, I'm going to keep playing. Suki wants to go out again, so excuse me.
My experiences, my presentations, my books are unique because I'm the only person that I know of that was allowed to interact with the extraterrestrials, the tall whites, for more than 2 years.
So 3 different species of aliens you're talking about there, Charles?
Yeah, can you describe what they look like,
that is
what they
correct.
were like?
Well, I'll start with the tall whites.
Yeah, he's live. He's alive. This was in 2000. This interview was in 2013.
Thinner than we are, and they're very frail.
By the way, interestingly, I said earlier how that AI picture looked very similar to the photo that kind of surfaced with the Antarctica 4chan leaks, which I never got a copy of. I don't think sent to me in Discord, so I can't post it, unfortunately. Mark posted something, but it's not quite the picture I was after. I might have it. I'll try and dig for it while we watch this. But this photo that's on the screen now is also in a 4chan archive somewhere, because the first time I've seen this was in a 4chan archive talking about tall whites.
Throughout most of their life, they are the same height as I am, 5'11", but they live 10 times longer than humans. They live 600 or 800 years.
Wow.
But they don't age the way we do. When they get to be equivalent to a human of about 40 years, that means when they're about 400 years, they start growing again instead of aging as humans.
Right.
And then they go, and this continues, and so that by the time they get to be 600 or 800 years old, they're very tall, 8.5, 9, or 10 feet tall. But this is not necessarily good because their skeleton grows more than their internal organs. And so they're...
So this is what I can't stand the most about the guy interviewing him. Like, he's saying this stuff, and the interviewer's going, yeah, right, yeah, the organs get too big, yeah, bloody hell, hate it when that happens. Like, he's such a cringer.
Comes a time after 600 or 800 years when their skeleton, their body is tall, but their organs can't support it.
Can't support the
at
organism.
which time they die in
Can't support the organism. Yeah.
natural death, because they're just flesh and blood creatures like we are. If they injure themselves, it takes them 10 times longer to heal up than a human.
Yeah.
So there's a trade-off.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
Yep.
They still look fresh as a daisy when they go, though. They look like Tilda Swinton. Hey, just quickly, you had them there. You were working with the aliens on any particular project, or was the military working with the aliens on a particular project? Was there, I don't know, technology sharing or, botanical cross-fertilization?
The U.S. Air Force, and I'm speaking of the mid-1960s, was willing to give them anything they asked for. When I first met them, I was very afraid of them, and every human I met when you come across them out in the desert was naturally very afraid of them, and they were even more afraid of us. It's like running into a gorilla in the wild where the gorilla is on his home ground. So they had to go through a process of becoming used to being around humans before they could take part in the technology transfer program. I, as the weather observer, was the test human. As an enlisted man, I was expendable.
Sure.
I was the one they send out to and say, practice talking to Charlie. And
Marie, let's bring you in. You've never seen these things for yourself. Are you?
Let me know what you guys think. I feel like the wife here is kind of like this. I feel like the wife damages his credibility, not majorly, but just let me know what you guys think.
You a believer? Because probably a lot of people watching this morning are going to think, I don't believe him. It's ridiculous. How could it be possible?
Well, Charles was very intelligent in that he waited until we'd been married a couple of months before he told me about the extraterrestrials coming into his barracks at night. And he said, well, what do you think? And I said, I really don't care. I have never given any thought as to whether they exist or not, and I really don't care. I've known Charles. We've been married over 43 years.
That's kind of weird, eh? She's like, I don't care. Like, it feels like she's saying, like, mate, I don't want to know about this shit. Like, she's too loyal to say, like, nah, I'm not really into it. So she's just kind of like, he's all good. I don't care.
He may be a character, but I am his character reference, and I totally believe that this is real. Furthermore, we have had confirmations from people all over the world. We have never had any serious tire kickers, people who say, well,
certainly there seems to be a lot of people. Would seem to be a lot of people around the world who would support your view on this, who seem to have had their own experiences, but probably not quite as intimately as you. Now, unfortunately, we are going to have to leave it there, Charles and Marie, because we're about to lose.
And so, yeah, they cut it off. Maybe that was just the end of the interview. But if you actually listen, it sounds like Charles it sounds like he starts trying to plug his book, and they just talk over him and like cut him off. If you listen carefully, I'm pretty sure.
Lose our satellite, but you're coming to Australia next week to give a series of talks, and we can't wait to see you. And all the details of your tour will be on our website. So those interested in the life beyond will no doubt be there.
Thank you.
Good one.
It's the wife. She's like, and people can go to our and then they get cut off. Yeah. And very extremely embarrassing hosts as an Australian. Super embarrassing. Ignorant. But like in a way, I don't know what people like Charles Hall expect. Okay, when you go on a mainstream station and say these kind of things, because that is how dog shit the mainstream media is. And by the way, this is in 2013. This is even like, this is before the Pentagon thing came out. This is a long time ago. I mean, I feel like the reaction you'd get now would only be a little bit better, to be fair. That's just how behind the mainstream media is. But yeah, I found that interesting though. So that's Charles Hall. He does have books, I believe, written on his time working with and dealing with these tall white species. And he is meant to be coming on Jesse Michaels soon. I don't know when. I would expect it has to be the next thing he releases. I hope it is, because I'm looking forward to that. I want to see what Jesse thinks after actually sitting with him as well. Yeah, they should have been treated with respect. Absolutely, Tamara. I mean, everyone should be treated with respect. It's a bit of a shame, really. And that would be why I've never told anyone. Exactly. These kind of things like perpetuate the stigma. His wife encouraged him to write the book so people would hear his story. He didn't really care for writing it. Interesting, Joe. I didn't know that. I haven't read his book. Unless you're paid, you go on a show to plug your stuff. Yeah, the wife coming on is a little bit, but I mean, who knows? Maybe they're just like, I feel like the older generations, like a lot of them, not a lot of them, but like, I feel like that's not uncommon. Like they really are like they're like couples, like they do everything together. They're like teams. Who knows? I'm lucky to not have an abduction. My stories are simple enough to not sound crazy. Feel free to share. Or guys, if you have an interesting story, you can join our Discord from the link below. We have channels for everything in there. People are just sort of in there chatting, hanging out, sharing memes. But we do have sections that are dedicated to sharing experiences, encounters, videos, photos, anything related to the phenomenon, but also like alternative history, science, religion, stuff like that as well. We got something for everybody there. That's just Aussie culture too. Try to talk to someone about the topic and you get laughed at. Yeah, exactly. We have a real problem here. It's called tall poppy syndrome, which is basically anyone who tries to do something different, anyone who, pops their head up, gets cut down. That's what tall poppy syndrome is. And yeah, I think it actually is getting better, I think, with the newer generations. Even though we flame the new generations, it does seem like it's getting a little bit better. But anyway, this kind of ties us into the last thing of the show today, which is just this image here that I wanted to look at. Now, we've looked at this before on the channel. This is, and actually, you know what? Okay, so this is from a movie called Monsters of California, which was directed, maybe not directed, actually. I don't know that for sure. But it's Tom DeLonge's creation. I don't know like what part he had in it, but it's his creation. And we know that Tom DeLonge has been trying to tell stories through fiction with Secret Machines, and even non-fiction with his God's Man and War, that he is trying to kind of get the message out through entertainment, because he is an artist, right? He's an artist, he's a creator. He's not going to write an essay or a formal like military document. He is going to try and express what he knows through art. And he's done that through a whole bunch of different ways, but one of them is this movie called The Monsters of California. Now, I've never seen it. I would love to see it. We will watch it in Discord, so if you haven't joined the Discord yet, go jump in there. We'll watch, we're not going to watch it yet, but it's on the list, okay? We've got a lot on the list to get through. The Abyss the other day was amazing, though. But this is a still frame from the movie, okay? And a lot of people kind of come back to this for various different reasons, because it's obviously quite interesting. So let's make it a little bit bigger. Well, let's just look at what we can see on it, right? On the outsides, on the right-hand side here, you've got consciousness. And then on the other side of consciousness, you have quantum mechanics. And it was just the other day how I was saying on the stream that like things that we call like woo and like magic and spiritualism and like all this kind of stuff, all that stuff is now just being explained with quantum mechanics and quantum theories, quantum physics. Like there's actually, it's like, no, this isn't weird or magic. Like it just works like this. And there are theories in the quantum realm that just explain it. Like it's just in the quantum realm, which is interesting, right? Because the people who have a massive problem with the woo, it's kind of like, no, this is actually just science now, right? But anyway, let's keep looking at this. So that's on the outer. You've got quantum mechanics and consciousness, and then you come in a layer, because that's how I interpret this, right? And maybe I'm wrong. If anyone thinks that I'm reading this wrong, let me know, because, you know, there are probably people in the chat way smarter than me. The way I interpret this is it's like some kind of layering system of like reality or something like that, or the way we view the phenomenon. You've got consciousness, quantum mechanics on the outside, then you come in a layer. And in that layer, you have all of the key religions: Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Hinduism, Shinto. I can't read what that is, but that's all I can see. Zoroastrianism, Taoism, Sikhism, and Gnosticism. And they all each have like this little arrow that's pointing in, right? And then in the middle, you have the others. And above the others, you have angels, devas, that's too small, Asparas, and Malak. And then underneath it, you have demons, archons, asuras, jinn, and oni. So like, this is just my understanding, right? Demons, archons, asuras, jinn, and oni. These are all they're basically all different religions' version of demons, right? I think, well, I'm going to assume Oni is from Shinto. Jinn is Islam. Asuras is Hinduism. Archons, I'm not really sure, to be honest. Maybe someone can let me know. And obviously demons is like a biblical Christian thing. So, and then the same can apply for the ones at the top, right? You've got angels, David. They're all just the same thing from different religions. But then in the middle, you have the others. And interestingly, those same arrows that were on the religions are pointing up from the demons and down from the angels into the others. And the others is something that Tom DeLonge I mean, Tom DeLonge talked about the others in like 2017, 2018. That was back when he was like saying wild shit. Remember when Tom DeLonge was saying wild shit? We should probably look at some of those. I said ages ago I want to do a Tom DeLonge video, and I still do. Maybe we'll do a Tom DeLonge deep dive on his clips. But he said the others a long time ago, and it's obviously in this movie now because it's his movie. Archons are from the Gnostics, thank you. But also the others was referenced in Matthew Brown's tweet, which I can pull up for you guys. So the tweet that we did the big stream on the other day where Matthew Brown kind of broke the internet with all of the crazy stuff that was going on, he mentions the others in here somewhere, I believe. Yes. So in this last paragraph just here, he says, so about now you're realizing how terribly deceived and manipulated you have been, and by people who claim to love Jesus above all else. If you are serious about saving humanity from itself and the others, saving humanity from itself and the others. That to me, like, so if I'm reading that correctly, it's like we need to save us from ourselves because we're going crazy with technology and we're going to blow ourselves up. But we also need to save ourselves from the others. Are the others the tall whites? The Nordics? Because if we go back to our little history lesson we did at the start of this, there certainly seems like there is some kind of interference with humanity, or like Carl Nell has said, a non-human intelligence has been interacting with humanity for a long time. This picture seems to depict that in more of a cryptic way. But, you know, the angels, the devas, as we said earlier, they are the ones who are allegedly, you know, coming down from the heavens looking like Nordics, flying the Vimanas. This to me, like, are they the others? It just depends how you interpret this thing, right? It depends how you interpret this thing. I read this as angels, devas, blah, 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 being different from the others. But maybe it's saying that, like, all of those things are, like, that is the others. What do you guys think? What do you guys think? Because I really am not sure about that one. I might just post this up in our Discord if anyone wants to keep looking at it later. Again, if you haven't joined, please do. The link is below. Also, how do I get rid of this? We've been live for nearly 2 hours, okay? We've had 317 votes in the poll, and it's 50-50. Apparently, no one actually knows if the tall whites or the Nordics are a separate race or the same race. I was kind of under the illusion that they were the same. However, after listening to Charles Hall speak in that little clip there, he says they're not. And he apparently worked with them. How else can you say it? He apparently was a colleague of the others, of the tall whites and the Nordics. Akinova says the others capitalize. It suggests they are a group. Very interesting. That would make a lot of sense because there is a group of angels, archons, devas, and all that kind of stuff. Maybe they are all the others. It's super interesting, especially when you look at it in that layered format. And, you know, when Matt Brown suggests that there is a lot more to reality that we're not told, it really does all make a lot of sense. But guys, if you've enjoyed this stream today, please like it. Just the little thumbs up. It makes a massive difference. It really helps push the video out to other people. And also, if you want to become a member and support me even further, it's only $5 a month. You get members-only videos, and you get access to the members section in our Discord as well. You can also support me on Buy Me a Coffee, but I also just really appreciate you guys being here and hanging out. I love the live streams. I love the interaction. There'll be a video coming out tonight. Stay tuned for that. Be good, and I'll see you all next time.
No matter how far you go into the dark, when you flip, you go exactly the same place to the light in our galaxy.